Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath.
The podcast where we discuss relationships in movies and our relationships with them.
I'm Polina Grenville.
And I'm Diana Rojek Skonnord.
Hello, Diana.
Hey, Polina. I'm going to need some sort of non-violent palate cleanser after this episode.
Yeah, can we?
We'll figure something out.
Yeah, please. I think it'll be good. I think that is what we need. So you saw my Bonnie and Clyde, and you raised me.
A true romance.
A true romance.
I did. A 1993 true romance, to be specific.
Exactly.
I mean,
30 years on.
What is more romantic than Quentin Tarantino's, written, I really need to sell this in order to finance Reservoir Dogs, opus True Romance, directed by Tony Scott.
Who directed Top Gun?
Well, I mean,
he directed other things.
I was about to say there were some other Scott type movies as well.
Yes,
but
many.
Yes. But before we get too far into the synopsis, I have brought someone with me.
What do we have here?
My husband.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that guy. I remember him.
Say something.
Hi there. I heard it was White Boy Day.
And you delivered.
Yes, indeed.
And for those of you who haven't seen the movie, I'm sorry.
1993 was a little less...
There was definitely various slurs of uncomfortableness and I'm sorry. I said Quentin Tarantino. I'm back in normal town.
Yeah. Actually, I read a great review of this movie that said that was talking. It was the 25-year anniversary or something, and it was saying it was like before a Tarantino movie had meaning. This was before you knew what to expect when you were going into this, there was this movie. Because we were trying to go back to if you watch it now versus then. You just didn't have that, there wasn't this genre, I guess, even though there kind of was. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, we were talking about the chronology when we watched it. The fact that it feels like a later movie, maybe just because it so much has his style, it almost feels like it's sort of trading on this well-established feel of Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, and the fact that I believe it predated both of those, if I have that right.
Yeah.
You mean when they came out? Mm-hmm. I believe so, but I'm not positive. Go on, I will find out.
Well, it was at the very least, it was May. It was only Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, I felt it has this It's sort of funny because you think it's well-worn, and then I was reading contemporaneous reviews, which were actually pretty positive. And basically everybody was like, yeah, it's its own sort of thing. You have to go into it sort of expecting this that it's really, kind of messy and, lots of references and
not as many references as I thought came up in this movie, but go on.
Pop culture stuff, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, some of them were actually kind of pretty deep. And what's amazing is that in 93, wow, that's deep. Now it's oh, wow, that's a super referential thing that he's talking about, a comic book that ultimately Samuel L. Jackson will end up playing the character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, and I think it's still, and it's also still that time where the comic book nerd thing was still kind of a nerd. I mean, it's I guess the graphic novels, in the 90s where people started referring to things as graphic novels, I think around then.
No, the 80s, I would say people were saying 80s, still call them graphic novels. I think there's a difference between when they called them that and then when people are just no, it's not a comic book, it's a graphic novel.
I guess, maybe that's what, maybe this is also when I got into quote unquote graphic novels or a little bit. Actually, no, I don't know if I was.
Let me
later.
Allow me to fill in the blank. Reservoir Dogs, 1992. True Romance, 1993. Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction, 1994.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah. So Reservoir Dogs was out. But then I think this got made before Reservoir Dogs, right?
I believe that this movie was sold and probably was in production so he could make the money so he could have the money to make Reservoir Dogs.
That's what I read.
So they were probably in production concurrently.
Probably. Yeah. I might as well just break it out right now. In my younger days, of course, when all of this had just started to come out, there was The Simpsons and the Itchy and Scratchy special guest director, Quentin Tarantino.
Yes.
I just think it's great. It's just that, I'll break out my just one Tarantino impression. Like, what I'm trying to say is that violence is everywhere in our society. It's like even in breakfast cereals, man.
I totally forgot about that.
And then he gets his head chopped off. So it's all good. Yeah. And so, like, it's I didn't see it when it first came out. Naturally, I would have been 10. I don't think I would have made it anywhere near the theater or gotten this past my parents. I think I mentioned in an earlier episode that one of the first VHSs I bought with my own money was the movie Casino.
Yeah.
And they took that and saw it and immediately took it away from me.
That's probably wise.
Yeah. And so eventually, this has to be like I'm 17-ish years old. I'm able to rent whatever the hell I want with my Blockbuster card. That's actually my dad's, but my name's on it. Account. Yeah.
And you can actually rent R movies.
I know.
That's exciting.
The law says so.
Yeah.
R means 17.
Right. That was an exciting moment.
And how comfortable were you watching these R-rated movies?
I definitely hid in my room as I was watching them on my own TV that I got as the only family member because I was the special youngest where everyone had already moved out.
Nice.
It's okay. Okay, back to the synopsis so we can get to this whole thing here. Okay, this is too long, but okay. A comic book nerd, an Elvis fanatic, Clarence, Christian Slater, and a prostitute named Alabama, Patricia Arquette, fall in love. Clarence breaks the news to her pimp and ends up killing him. He grabs a suitcase of cocaine on his way out thinking ... We'll just stop there.
Yeah. Things happen. There's shooting. There's
a ton of amazing people in this movie, including Gary Oldman and Brad Pitt and Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper and James Gandolfini and Val Kilmer and name some other people, honey, because
Michael Rapaport.
Michael Rapaport.
Oh, Bronson Pinchot.
Who I love.
Bronson Pinchot.
Bronson Pinchot was just like a total, was maybe my favorite little moment.
Let's not forget Saul Rubinek.
Yep.
And I think
Tom Sizemore.
Oh, shoot. And Michael Penn. When we were going through the credits, we were actually doing oh, rest in peace, Michael Penn. Oh, rest in peace. Oh, crap. Who else rested in peace? Oh, Dennis Hopper?
Yeah.
Yes.
Michael Penn? You mean Chris Penn?
Dang it. I did that thing again when we were doing Bonnie and Clyde and the Michael Penns. That actually is a pen. But it's not the Leo pen.
No, it's a different pen.
Geez.
Anyway.
The point is,
yes.
R.I.P. Chris Penn.
Yes.
All right.
And Dennis Hopper and James Gandolfini.
Oh, James Gandolfini. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. But just some of the people that just show up in this movie, even for the tiniest role.
Right.
I mean, rewatching this a couple days ago for the podcast, I had myself braced for just horrific violence and just being horrifically upset because I can't take. I love this. It's I can't walk down the stairs like I used to. I can't watch Tarantino like I used to. It's just, it wasn't very long. It was only 2 hours. And this one is just all right, let's think about how much violence there's going to be. Let's think about how many, slurs there are going to be. Let's think about how much it's just going to be oh God, this is so, but it's just it's real. It's violent. It's society. You just got to think about these things. Nazis are real. Racism is real. The Hateful Eight are real. I don't know. What can I point to at that movie? Angry violent.
Pie is real.
Pie is real. The number?
No, the food.
Oh, I don't want pie. See, I don't want that either.
I love pie.
But watching this, as you were saying, Ryan, there's something about it that feels very contemporary. And the only thing that kind of pulls you out of it is the lack of cell phones. And, their payphones. And in fact, in true romantic form, they have sex in a payphone booth.
They do. It's a pretty good sex scene.
Oh, okay. I didn't say that, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying. Okay. I enjoy. I was this is a pretty good sex scene.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
I just didn't appreciate that. It's just hang up the phone, and I'm just she's talking to your friend here.
Yeah.
She's
It was a little rude. Yeah. She's trying to establish a connection. She's gonna be staying in this person's house. You don't want to. You want to.
She loves you so much. She wants to love all the people that you love too, and you're just nah, me.
That's true. That's true, but it was a pretty good sex scene. I have a huge crush on Christian Slater. So.
I was going to ask you, because after it was over, you know, I'm like, oh, just like, you know, Heathers. And I'm just wondering, like, what other Christian Slater movies did you watch?
So I so shockingly did not see this movie, which surprises me. I think mostly because the year it came out, I worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and pretty much, and that was like a good week. So, you know, I didn't have I was a theater apprentice. And it was just, you know, I was living in New York City and I didn't have a lot of money either. And because of the apprentice part. And so, yeah, I just didn't end up seeing this movie, probably for logistical reasons. And then by then, everyone's seen it and no one wants to see it again. Let's see, other Christian Slater movies. So of course, Heathers.
Yep.
There was also one called...
Was it Cuffs?
No, I never saw Cuffs. It was, oh my God, it's the one about the radio station. I saw it like 18 times and now I can't find it anymore.
Pump Up the Volume?
Pump Up the Volume.
You're welcome.
I love that movie so much. It's probably terrible. I saw it so many times. Yeah, huge Christian Slater. Like, I used to have a huge crush on Christian Slater.
So you have just very inadvertently given permission to say we're going to do Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen it, but it has Christian Slater, so I'll be fine.
You will not be pleased when we watch it, but yeah.
How much Christian Slater?
How much Christian Slater?
Yeah, is there like a lot of Christian Slater? Will the Christian Slater carry me through the movie?
Of course not.
Oh, damn.
But it's okay because it's Alan Rickman and Morgan Freeman and Kevin Costner, I guess.
Or is it going to be one of those things where I'm like,
no.
These people could be making really good movies?
How dare you? I mean, I'll think the same thing, but I won't say it out loud. And if I may,
yes,
as a whole,
I've never seen it, so actually, I'm just being judgmental for no apparent reason.
Okay.
But I'm gonna guess.
Okay. Just to make it worse, I will blast the soundtrack where you can hear Bryan Adams sing. You know, it's true. Everything you do, I do it for you.
Wow.
But if I can get back to True Romance,
that's cruel.
I was trying to figure out why one of the hired goons who was in Lee What's His Nose's place, you know, as a bodyguard. I'm just like, why is that tall guy with the blonde ponytail look so familiar? He's Little John from Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that to Ryan. Ryan, laugh at that.
It's a better movie.
No, I mean it's a better
than
Robin
Prince of Thieves or True
Prince of
Romance.
Thieves, yes.
It's a better Robin Hood.
Yeah, that's what. No, yeah, it goes True Romance first, then Men in Tights, then Prince of Thieves.
Okay, good. That's your. Okay, so
and then Reservoir Dogs. We're talking about it. We're talking about in the romance category.
So you rented this when you were 17
ish,
or like around then.
Yes.
So like,
well, here's something that's important. I saw this movie
by yourself.
Yeah. I saw this movie before. Did I see this by myself or did I watch this with friends? Unclear. But I can tell you timeline-wise.
Because it would 10 years, like 7 years later, like a sizable amount of time
of when it came out.
Yeah. Like, so what did you know about the movie?
I had already seen Reservoir Dogs. I think I was working through already seen Reservoir Dogs, already seen Pulp Fiction. So working my way through the Tarantino movies.
Okay. So it was the Tarantino draw.
Yeah, highly likely. And so what matters there is I had seen this movie before I had met Ryan. Mm-hmm. And it was, if I remember, fill in the blanks of this actual story, but you had mentioned that I had introduced you to a whole bunch of different movies.
Yes, and the first time I saw True Romance was when you showed it to me, which was pretty early when we were first dating, within the first year or two probably.
Yeah, what was I thinking?
What were you thinking?
I should have said, watch this, and then I go hide in a different room while you watch it. I was very shy and uncomfortable.
What was it that made
probably the phone booth sex?
Right, like that you didn't want to watch with him.
And the earlier sex?
Yeah.
Not the violence, though, or the...
And the scene where you see him peeing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Not any of the cursing or racial slurs, though?
That didn't help.
I think you were okay with it, though.
I was not... I was okay with the racial slurs?
And not that you, like, approved of them, but just that they were, like, within the context of the movie. They were...
If we have to rank it, it goes, here's what makes me uncomfortable watching a movie and another person is also in the room with me. Sex, racial slurs, violence, cursing, and that's about all.
believe this movie is rather famous for its cursing too. It's in like somewhere in like the top 15 or 20 most
There's a lot of cursing.
uses of the F word in a Hollywood
Of the F
film.
words.
Yeah.
What about the N word? Tarantino needed to take up his N word game.
I mean, I think what it lacked in quantity, it made up for in memorability.
Yeah. I felt like, the quality was really there.
How did you feel about Gary Oldman in this movie?
I sort of loved it because at first I didn't even recognize him, and I love Gary Oldman. I used to love Gary Oldman. I just realized I've not seen a movie with Gary Oldman in it in a very long time.
Somebody didn't watch the Batman trilogy.
Some of them, yes, I did watch.
Somebody didn't watch the Harry Potter movies up to a
I
point.
did see a bunch of them.
Somebody...
Well, you reviewed The Fifth Element not too long ago.
Yes, and that actually I think is that's anyway. It doesn't. Point is, I loved it. I don't know. It was just so it just was so surprising because I kept being like, when is Gary Oldman's going to show up? Gary Oldman, singular. When are the multiple Gary Oldmans going to show up?
He'll show up with the Liam Neesons.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh my God. Oh, wait, that's Gary Oldman. Like, just something about him is really
Yeah, you watch him get
super
blown
charming.
away, and then 20 minutes later, you're like, so that was Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
That was his cocaine.
I mean, that is the saddest thing. So reading the trivia about this, the thing I found the most charming is that his 70-year-old mother was kept showing up on set, and he would ask her what she thought. And there was an article that I think probably gave more information about what he thought, but I was on the BART and I lost connection. So now I don't know, but I'll save that for home, and we'll link that if it's worthwhile.
Write that down.
What'd you think of the Gary Oldman character?
I was very uncomfortable with him for many reasons. First of all, so violent.
So violent.
So pimp-like in his
Terrible
not treating well
dental work.
of sure, dental work. That's where I was about to go. In his not treating well of women. Oh, okay, sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever, but the dental work. No. Yeah, well, in his whole sort of I'm this white guy in this Rasta outfit. I also was like, I don't know.
Is that cultural appropriation?
Yeah, it sort of felt a little like cultural appropriation, but they made him comment on it before you met him and warned you. They were like, yeah, he's this white guy, thinks he's a black guy.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know if that makes it any better.
No.
I don't think it does.
I don't think the film is framing him framing this as acceptable. Just these
Or a Rachel Dolezal.
I mean, they kind of make fun of him about it.
Yeah.
They kind of present it as this is a ridiculous thing about it, which I think is why Christian Slater character is this guy's going to be easy. He's a joke.
Right.
Well, if I may point out though, okay. So let's back up a few steps here. So you have Christian Slater works in a comic book store.
Right.
He loves martial arts movies. Yeah, martial arts movies. He goes. Patricia Arquette meets him, and I'm using air quotes in there. She has an encounter with him, and they start talking. She watches the movie marathon with him. They go have pie together. I even wrote down there that one of her things is she always likes to go have pie after a movie. And I'm thinking, oh, that's you and me, honey. Mm-hmm. We would love to go to the movies and then replace pie with cheese fries.
Yeah, but you just go out to have something, to sit in a diner and talk about the movie. I know. I loved that. I loved that.
Yeah. And it has a distinctly
That's my favorite thing to do too.
It has a distinctly different experience, whether it's regular dinner time versus a late night movie followed by extremely late night diner going.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Mm-hmm. Yes.
We were forced to go to Denny's a lot.
Yeah. Well, when I was a teenager, of course, it was Jersey diners, but or just walking. I remember or just walking around the city talking about the movie, but or getting a snack. Yeah.
It's so easy when you're young.
Right. You can process those cheese fries.
Yes,
easily.
exactly.
Damn it. And Hans Zimmer does the score, and the second the music started, Ryan goes, "Are we watching the trailer to this movie?" And I'm like, okay. But I had the soundtrack, and I would listen to not only the the nice score of the title score,
right,
but at the same time I'd also listen to the song that was playing when Christopher Walken was torturing Dennis Hopper. So
But which song was that? I don't remember.
It's just kind of operatic.
It's like a
very famous.
It's not written for the movie. It's kind of a classical.
It's an aria. Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And then the title theme you were referring to, that's the one that, hence my joke. It has been used in a lot of trailers and like outside of this movie.
The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's a song that's like played on the chimes, and it has this very distinctive kind of.
Yeah. It's like very cheerful,
very
and
whimsical. Yep, I like it a lot. And I listen to it all the time.
And it kind of goes with the whole like this movie has a lot of dissonance going around where like you toss out True Romance as being like synonymous with this like hard-boiled crime thriller, which is like not what the title sounds like it's describing, and also the music doesn't really feel like it's this is the True Romance music. They're reusing it in this commercial for Sister of the Traveling Pants or what have you. So.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah, there's just like, and just it's got a lot of those moments, like they have the whole thing where when Alabama, who's played by Patricia Arquette,
lovingly called Bama.
Oh God, I love Patricia Arquette. It's super charming in this, and she's at one point gets violently beaten.
Yes,
and the like cuts with Christian Slater, grabbing sandwiches, burgers for them.
Oh
and stuff.
Yeah,
There's a lot of that kind of thing where you have like
contrast,
something horrible happening, and then
I will say that in my true to fashion, not watching all of the movie, but just watching bits and pieces of movies.
Bits and pieces.
Okay. So what I thought was kind of interesting when I say, I want to do True Romance, and that doesn't really make sense because of said scene you talk about with James Gandolfini beating the ever-living crap out of her. Well, no, that was not one of those.
And her not folding.
Well, that's, if anything, that speaks more to my, late 30s version of just like, wow. Because as a teenager, it's just like, just tell him what he wants to hear. But in my 30s, I'm just like, just get something violent to bash into his skull.
Right.
Which she does.
And she got there. Yeah. We all want to aspire to be someone who gets there eventually.
Right.
I hope. But I
had such mixed feelings about that because I had both of those. I had both the 13 and the 7 anyway.
But 17, 18-year-old version of me really appreciated the talking in the pie. Well, except for the fact that, when he's asking, what are your turn-ons, what are your turn-offs? She says an entire ethnic group. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's uncomfortable.
No, that was really uncomfortable.
But fun trivia, I guess they did that take many times, and she improvises various ethnic groups.
Exactly.
So that's okay.
Like nobody else at the time saw, I mean, I will say the casual racism of the 90s, but like...
It's not slightly.
It seemed played a little bit like a joke. Like I wouldn't be willing to 100% write it off as one, but...
I mean...
Yeah.
Right. Well, there's a lot about this
and also,
movie
I mean, she'd been a hooker for 4 days, and I think he was her
third customer.
I can't remember now.
And she would take offense to that. No, I'm a call girl. There's a difference.
Yeah. And so he's like, maybe that there's something that happened in, that maybe the Persians is not like, there's a guy who happened to be Persian. That is kind of how I took it later, because at first she just seems super innocent. And then when you realize how much she puts up with, like when she's getting beaten, you're like, oh, this girl's got some shit's gone down.
Yes. I didn't think that far into it. I didn't really like kind of look into it, but I think it also had to do with, okay, if we're talking about True Romance and I'll okay, so I would watch the beginnings. I really enjoyed watching them. And this is going to like slash into my whole when did they fall in love thing, so I might as well just do it right now. This is love at first sight.
Right.
Love at first night, actually.
Right.
It's not at first sight because this is a job, and then she talks to him and she gets to know him. And young, very idealistic, naive me was thinking, oh, this is kind of amazing, where the circumstances are not ideal, but doesn't matter because when it happens, and you find your true love. Don't look at me like that. And so what I think is kind of amazing is that look at them together. And just, I love that after one night together, she's there, she's paid by Christian Slater's boss to find him in the movie theater and pretend to be into these things. And then once she realizes that she's in love with him, the next night, not even the next morning. It's like still dark outside when
Right,
he's
like
having
right
a
after
full-on
they-
confession of just,
Yeah.
this is what happened, and I'm trying to tell you the truth, and I've been a call girl for 3 days, and then I'm just telling you that, even though this is all it's what happened and this is all it is, I'm 100% monogamous. And he just takes one look at her and it's just like, yeah, I love you too. And it's just like, oh, this is wow. And then the very next morning they get married.
Right.
And it's just there. It's just kind of amazing. And you're talking about like she's gone through some serious shit. If you look at all the serious shit that they've been to up to that point, everything is working against them. But everything is always working out in their favor. And the consequences are not touching them as hard as they are to other people. Yes, she
like
gets
the
beaten
dad.
horribly. Yes, he gets shot in the eye and
Right.
nearly dies. But yes, his father gets tortured and killed. All the people around them are just like executed, save Floyd, played by
Right.
Brad Pitt. Good job, Floyd.
Yeah.
Which he's some great comic relief.
Oh,
Right there.
so good.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt randomly showing up in the not even just like a character actor part, but like a particularly small one.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
still early though.
I think he'd just done Thelma and Louise, and they said something about him. He was kind of coming up, and he just was like, "Fine, I'll do this," but knowing it was a tiny part. But he was like, was kind of on his way up.
Right.
Like he hadn't. I don't even know if like a second movie was out yet, but yeah, and really delightful. But
I don't think Brad Pitt was truly Brad Pitt then. But
no.
Well, it's been said in latter years that Brad Pitt is a character actor in a leading man's body, and that does kind of shine through there because it's like it feels so natural for him to be in that supporting role of just like filling out this like quirky cast of characters and being the stoner guy on the couch.
Right.
Well, I've also heard that he wasn't really acting, and that's just who he is in real life. That doesn't matter. He gets to be A-list. Give me money.
Brad Pitt's a super interesting character, actually. I just heard an interview with him, Mark Maron, and just it's just a part like it's kind of fascination with art and I don't know, just producing and it's just kind of it just seems like an interesting guy.
Could be.
Also super hot. But anyway, Brad Pitt, but it's so the way I kind of read it is like the beginning of it, you see him basically in a dive bar, like a true dive bar, not like a hipster dive bar.
We're talking Christian Slater.
Christian Slater. The
Clarence.
first scene, Clarence. You see him trying to hit on actually a woman who looks a lot like Alabama, just not as perfect.
And he what he says to her, he also ends up saying to Alabama later on at their date. So
He clearly has a routine.
Right. Yeah. Like this is his. Yeah. So, and his boss obviously buys him this, even though he's obviously like a handsome guy, because I'm going to assume this boss sort of knows he hasn't had a lot of luck with women.
Well, he works in a comic book store, so logic will dictate that he is a nerd and cannot find any hope with the ladies.
One thing that like I wrote and watching this movie as an adult, as I did, is like, I was kind of dreading it. Like I was like not in the mood. I was super tired. I was, I wanted I didn't want any more jangling. I'd come back from a trip that was very jangly, nerve-wise.
I didn't tell you to watch Django.
Yeah, just like that kind of jangled nerve feeling. I was nervous about work the next day. It was just like I felt, but I was like, okay, this is my only opportunity to watch this. And I started out and I was like, I liked the way it looked. And I like Christian Slater, as I pointed out.
You liked the way he looked?
I liked the way he looked. I liked the way the movie looked. I was like, okay. But I was like kind of dreading the violence of it. And I sort of started out kind of being irritated by two things in the movie. One is like, I was like, what is it about youth that is obsessed with dying young? Nobody who's older is obsessed with dying young. There's some age, it's probably 27. It's probably the rock and roll death year.
Yep.
Or maybe your Jesus year, like
34.
34.
33, sorry.
Yeah, 33.
I celebrated when I made it to 34.
Yeah.
Go on.
When you your Jesus, like where, you know, you still like this idea as like a woman in her mid 40s. I'm like,
What is it? I'm sorry, really quick.
what?
Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse, all 27?
Yeah. And then there's Buddy Holly,
Richie Valens and the Big Bopper?
Richie Valens.
Well, that's the dying young thing, but I'm talking about, you said 27.
The Big Bopper was on the soundtrack to this movie, I believe.
Oh.
Nice one. But anyway, but just like, I was like, what is it with all these like, you know, die young, leave a beautiful corpse thing? Like,
Well, the contrast would be Elvis, who did not die young, and look what happened to him.
yeah, right. I just think it's just like, it's this idea, like it's supposed to set him up as kind of a romantic, but I was just like, oh God.
Oh, James Dean, sorry.
James Dean, yeah.
No, the other dying young. Whole
Yeah,
thing,
yeah. I
being a
think
legend.
there's a couple other 27. Kurt Cobain, right? Did we name
I said
him?
Cobain.
You might have named him. Okay. Anyway,
well, you know what?
a whole
You know
bunch.
what? You know who else died young? John Candy and Chris Farley. Okay,
It's true.
But look at all the things that we missed. Phil
know.
Hartman. Now I'm sad. Why would you bring this up, Polina? I quit.
Okay.
Actually, let me bring.
I'm really sad.
No,
Okay, but
let me
I guess
bring-
my point is, so then there was another movie where they started like they were like kind of bashing cunnilingus. I'm like, that's not fair. That's not right. Anyway, so
Hold on.
I actually got sucked in to this movie.
Are we still talking about cunnilingus?
No, we've moved on.
Okay. I want to know.
But
why
I got
you,
super sucked in.
I want to know why you just reacted that way.
Because I said the word cunnilingus.
I was waiting for your reaction, actually.
Oh, I see.
Although, since we're talking
She's
about
like,
it, wasn't
Polina's talking about sex again.
not unlike the racial insensitivity, wasn't that also being said by the mobster characters?
Yeah, they were it was basically like a sign of weakness.
Right.
Right.
Or not. Well, I don't think weakness is the right word, but implied. Like
Yeah, being whipped or
not even whipped, but just like that makes you. I don't.
yeah, it makes
I don't
you
even-
less masculine or something.
Yes.
Which I'm like, well, not having sex with any of you guys. Anyway, not that they're asking, but I got super sucked in. Like I started really enjoying this movie, and I did like.
At what point?
Well, I actually kind of after they meet in the movie theater, and after they have that whole lovely like. You know,
Exchange.
like the whole like them getting to know each other over pie.
You
and-
mean the romance part of the movie?
Yeah, like I liked it. And even actually the violence, like I realized, because I'd also watched the Star Trek movie. I watched some old Star Trek Beyond movie. And
the
I
record,
realized
it
why
was
I get super bored. Yes, it was the third one that we figured out.
Is the newest Star
It's
Trek
the
movie.
newest Star Trek movie.
Sorry, whatever. The last Star Trek.
Already
Sorry.
a little bit old at this point.
It was a pretty old movie. I think it was like regardless. The point is, I saw this movie, and the thing that made me, I was like kind of on a couple days before, and I was like, ugh, this is the whole thing. I hate like all of these. I get really bored with fight scenes when there's no consequences, and I felt like, you know, and I kind of mentioned this with Bonnie and Clyde, but actually, all the fight scenes were super brutal
In this movie.
And, you know, you had that sort of, you had that kind of Bonnie and Clyde inspired thing where, you know, their bodies are like, you know, kind of convulsing from bullets. But it was much more bloody, but also like it was another movie where all of the violence actually has consequences. Like nobody is being thrown across a room and then is like, okay, let's go again.
Consequences for the winners of the fights as well as the losers. That's something that stuck out to me in this movie. That and maybe this is, you know, Tarantino's style coming through. But you know, like one little detail I noticed was Clarence's mood right after he gets back from killing Drexel, and he's like still sort of like exhilarated by it, and also pretty evidently scared. There's that line about how, you know, the cheeseburger is like the best one he's ever had in his life,
Right.
And then similarly, Alabama after the fight with James Gandolfini's character, her face remains pretty beaten up for the remainder of the movie at that point, which is something you don't.
And they
always see in
deal
Hollywood
with it.
films.
Like, they don't like they talk about it. They're like. They have to cover for her, you know, for like how she looks.
And she like has no problems. Just like, yeah, I got hit in the face with a basketball.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
And even, you know, there's James Gandolfini sort of does this whole thing about how he was murdered, or he's like the first one like his reaction to that was so intense. The first kill, how you feel about that, how you feel about the second one, and how then you start doing it just to watch their expressions change. It was so chilling. Like,
that's how you feel about action movies. You just got so desensitized to it.
Right.
You Gandolfini'd.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, two comments about that. So what you were saying about how Clarence was just so jazzed about, killing, not jazz, but like Drexel, he was still...
Oh, he's like the adrenaline.
The adrenaline.
High,
yes. He's like yelling, because he comes back, he tells Alabama, and she just starts sobbing like crazy. And he actually kind of turns it on her. He's just like, why? Why are you crying? Did you love him? And then, again, this is something I loved watching when I was younger. She's like, no, what you did, it was so romantic. I'm like, oh.
Killed for her.
It was their first fight.
Which I wonder about that sometimes. As much as I don't want to think about that, I think about the times where something has happened to me and Ryan has gotten puffed up about it, and I'm just like, no, I don't want you to do that. But at the same time, though, wow, he would do that for me.
I know. I have the same thing where I'm like, I would be so angry if you striked him, but like, I want you to.
It's a weird primal.
It's a weird primal thing where I'm like, why didn't
Mm-hmm.
I can take care of myself. Why didn't you protect me? It's like
violence is wrong.
Same thing.
But at the same time, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should also point out, you were talking about how much you love Christian Slater. There's something specific about how dark his hair is and the way he's talking and the way his face is shot in this movie, where I asked Ryan, hey, doesn't he kind of look like Chris Evans in Not Another Teen Movie?
He really does.
You kind of did. Yeah.
I'll have to look up a still.
Yes, you should. Not the banana one.
Okay.
But yeah, young and kind of squinty. And
young and squinty.
Like in an attractive
That's how I like them.
Yeah.
Like a good squint. A sexy squint gets me every time.
Well, I was, again, when the sex scene came up and you see how into Elvis he is, I got so distracted by looking anywhere else on the screen. I'm just like, is that Elvis statue the same statue from that episode of Saved by the Bell with the Elvis statue? And Ryan had no idea what I was talking about. I'm like,
I have no idea.
I mean,
I've seen a Saved by the Bell, but I don't
with
remember
the Elvis statue?
I don't remember that one.
That's an episode.
Okay. I'll have to look it up.
Something tells me that might not be one of Tarantino's signature pop culture references.
Yeah.
Saved by the Bell might be a little bit outside of...
Read up.
Saved by the Bell, though, is such a cult.
I don't know if he was
TV
referencing
show.
that so much as just like, hey, here's a leftover prop from the back of the room.
Right. There you go.
Yep.
It's from the prop house.
It's from the prop house.
Yeah. So, okay, let me actually ask you a question about the elf. So he talks to this Elvis character. Like, it's actually played by Val Kilmer.
Or is it? No, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was like, wait, what?
Well, you never see the face is the point.
You never see the face.
Yeah,
I only found out later, and I was like, that voice is so familiar. Who is it? And then you find out it's Val Kilmer.
Iceman.
This cast, they just have stars to burn,
They did.
Totally.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
Like going to great lengths to keep you from being able to tell it's Val Kilmer.
To see Val Kilmer.
You must have just been the best person for the role.
Yeah.
You know, that's artistic integrity right there.
Hey, Tony Scott, I need some work. Can you put me? Yeah, be Elvis.
Yeah.
I guess he actually wanted to be Clarence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was according to IMDb trivia.
So he appears as sort of
He
can't tell what it is exactly. So what do you think?
What do I think about?
What do you think that the what they call the mentor, the Elvis character?
Yeah, that's how he was credited,
right?
As the mentor. The man is clearly infatuated with Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious.
No, but like, what did you see that character as?
Are you interpreting it as some sort of like supernatural agency versus being in Clarence's mind? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like is it an actual delusion, like a delusion he's having? Is it a dream thing? Is it like
Are you
what
asking me or are you asking 17-year-old Diana?
Both.
Both of them are just blinking at you like romance, Polina.
Oh, okay. How about you? What did you see him as?
This might be the boring answer, but I mostly defaulted to interpreting it as just being an expression of Clarence's thoughts, like him talking to himself. Too. What would Elvis do in this situation? What advice would he give me if he were over my shoulder right now?
Yeah, I kind of saw because he's a lonely character. It was kind of an imaginary friend sort of thing, which is like, the imaginary friend being sort of Elvis. So he's like the person who like pushes him to do what he really wants to do, but like kind of gives himself permission.
Yeah, that's
like imaginary friends kind of do.
Yeah,
kind of give you the thing you're a little too embarrassed to give yourself.
That is interesting because it seems like it's filling sort of like an id role and a superego role at the same time, because it's sort of like this like figure that he looks up to, and it's like what's kind of like seeking wisdom, but at the same time like the mentor is kind of telling him what he wants to hear, like yes, you should go ahead and kill that pimp, like that's not that's not conventionally cautious advice. So
no,
I'm going to step in on what I just thought about.
All right.
So something that's kind of important here, correct me if I'm wrong, the mentor did not appear until after he met Alabama.
Yeah, I think the first scene is when they were talking about Drexel.
Okay, so that crystallizes what I was thinking here. One of the things I thought that was kind of important after this rewatch is this movie is kind of one of those examples of there's something about the love of a good woman that kind of makes, someone become more confident. You notice he becomes a go-getter because before he's like, I just kind of worked in this comic book shop and I just did this and I just did this. He's like, he's barely scraping by.
Yeah, and he doesn't really have a problem with it. Like he's like, she's like, oh, this is such a cool job. And he's like, it's great. The only problem is like
the money
and, no future. But I get to like hang out here whenever I want.
I like the customers.
Yeah. Like he likes his, he's not.
And so now, even something else that his father said, you've got her you've got her, so you've got a family now and that kind of thing. I think partially with what you were saying about how it's a combination of his, internal monologue, just kind of like justifying all these certain things. I think because we didn't see the mentor before her introduction, I think he is a crystallization of something that kind of came out based on the fact that now he has these larger decisions and life decisions and an entire, other person to take care of him as well. It might as well take the form of, his mentor in life rather than this guy. If I ever had to have sex with a man, it would be Elvis.
That is interesting because the fact that he's talking about Elvis prior to that scene and the fact that he's bringing him up as this sort of like highly sexual figure, that kind of suggests that like Elvis is his model for masculinity, and this is like seeing myself not just as like a person or as a man, but as like a male partner to a woman.
That's really interesting because it's funny. I would have assumed that Elvis was there before, but I think that you're totally right. It's about like, I do like, because he talks basically about his like kind of animal primacy, his like, Elvis, he sort of talks about him in that way. And you're right, that this is like if he's going to have a mentor about what it's like to really live, and just be this like kind of powerful masculine figure and like have a sex life and
If I can wrap up the whole like going over the movie part of it though, I was saying before is that they've had so much luck with having all these things just kind of happen, like violent people are coming after them, the police are coming after them, and they manage to kind of slip through all these things. Just like they torture and kill his father to find out where they went. They went to California. Well, had they actually done a little bit more than just sitting there waiting for someone to come home, had they looked at the refrigerator, oh, hey, here's the address. Instead, they went through this huge violent, encounter.
Right.
And wow, it was on the refrigerator the whole time. They could have gone in, seen it, left. Who knows how long they were waiting for him. And then when Gandolfini's character comes in, he beats the ever living crap out of Alabama, and then finally like, did you put it under the bed? Why would you put it under the bed? Why didn't I look under the bed?
Right.
I'm just like, what is wrong with everybody?
Right.
Well, yeah, it's black comedy. I mean, not just.
I'm not funny. I'm not laughing. I'm not funny.
Not only the fact that the note was sitting on the refrigerator there the entire time, but also the fact that Dennis Hopper's character went to such great lengths. And I assume we're all on the same page here, that the point of his whole monologue about the history of Sicilians is that he was trying to provoke Christopher Walken's character into losing his temper and murdering him,
right.
so that he wouldn't be tortured.
Right.
And then and even that kind of like comes to naught because he wasn't even like succeeding in his goal of withholding the information about Clarence, because that was like the bad guys kind of got what they wanted anyway. So that, like both sides were kind of losing there.
It's also in the trivia that not only did he tell the story to provoke him, but apparently it was the truth.
Right, because he made a big deal about how he can tell when someone's lying, and that's why he got so angry.
And the fact that he wasn't giving the markers of telling a lie. No, someone did tell him the story. No, someone did say all these things to him, so it's all the truth.
That's such a great script.
Yeah. No, I can't listen to it again.
I just, these moments though are like, I thought I would like, when I sat down, I was like, when I was watching, I was so nervous about that scene. Like I just was like, I know I'm going to see, I'm just not there.
Uh-oh, Christopher Walken.
But then it got, but then I just like, it's such a great scene. And it goes on for, like, if it was one line, it would have been like, all right, here we go. But like, you're like, what is going to happen here? Mm-hmm. Like, why is he telling this story? It took me like a while to figure it out. Like, I mean, after the movie, it like made sense to me, but like, I was like, is he trying to make him angry? Like, you don't know. It's not predictable what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're not even 100% sure that he's going to shoot him. Like, I had a moment where I was like, oh, maybe he'll just like let him go.
Yeah. The tension building is so, I don't want to say it like diluted, but it's sort of like sweetened with the amount of humor in that scene, because it is like, my sympathy to people who are, uncomfortable with like all the slurs being thrown around, but the way that like Christopher Walken is like laughing with them, and he seems like genuinely amused and like,
but also really nervous.
And like
kind of nervous. Like, where's this going to go? How am I supposed to like?
I would say he's nervous. I'd say he's intrigued.
Yeah.
And
good point.
And we can read from like the way that scene ends that maybe he was joking about rage, but when he's laughing, he seems like really amused. And in fact, that's kind of echoed later in the movie with Tom Sizemore's character of the police detective, who's like listening to the unfolding conversation in the drug deal at the end of the movie, and he is just cracking up at like the way that like Clarence is finessing the movie producer, and it's like this sort of thing where like I don't know if it's like cordiality between adversaries or but yeah, it's just the way that like the emotional notes are like mixed together, because I guess my point is like I went into that scene remembering being really entertained by it. Like the tension is rough, but also just the way that like the characters are just cracking up with each other. It's like such a great, like it kind of relieves the tension without like fully letting it off all the way. So
it's rough. I'm just imagining it all over again.
It is kind of, I mean, I do have a hard time with Val. Like, I always have. I think I've less of it. Actually, I can handle it a little more now.
I feel like I might be in a minority here of people who don't have like strongly negative associations with like the tension in this movie. I don't know if I'm
no I love the tension. It's more like it's like, I mean, I don't know, when you're watching, I mean, you're like, it is really different watching, say, Rosanna Arquette getting beaten up.
Yes.
Or even I mean, not Rosanna Arquette, Alabama. It's oh God,
Patricia.
I'm sorry. Yes, Patricia Arquette. I mean, it's Alabama, but like, it's hard to watch that. Like in a way that scene, like like I was saying about the Star Trek movie. Like you're watching, Kirk fight somebody or other.
This movie made a huge impression on you.
No, it's just sort of I guess it was the contrast of the violence and being bored by it, and just like, can we just fast forward through it was just watching my reaction between that kind of like action versus it's just hard to watch someone get beat up.
Which is interesting the way you put that, because when you talked about that versus like the, Star Trek, Pirates of the Caribbean, Marvel type movie, oh, here comes the action scene and cue this and cue that and cue the choreography. We were watching Atomic Blonde not too long ago, and I'm just like, awesome. This is going to be like, the more gritty stuff. We'd watched the first Jack Reacher like years after it had come out, and it was, grittier and a little bit more like visceral. Right. And I'm like, wow, we don't see this very often. And so when we watched it, it was really good. And then I watched Atomic Blonde, and I'm just like, oh, I can't do this anymore. It's just like very real. But watching this again, knowing to brace myself for it, I was able to take it in just kind of a watching mode. So I get what you're talking about with the action and all the other stuff, but now that is just like, nah, too visceral.
I mean, I think it's it's not a bad thing about this movie because I'm not bored by the violence, but I'm affected by it. Like, as you said, there's, and kind of goes back to the consequences thing.
Yeah, but I think in like the range of Tarantino's works, I can sort of like mentally sort through, like there's a large number of scenes where I remember the tension really getting to me the first time that I saw it and still hold up even on reviewing. And then others where I more like look forward to it, where I kind of remember not like entertaining in the way that like a popcorn flick action movie is, like, oh, people are going to be shooting or whatever, but like some feeling like a little bit more fun. So yeah, I guess my take on that is just that, there's a certain capability of range there, and there's a lot of artistry that goes into like how much tension is making it uncomfortable. Because like within True Romance, I was going to say the fight scene with Alabama and Virgil, I believe, James Gandolfini's character, that one stood out to me as being rough, and, and in contrast to, say, the big shootout at the end, which was still very bloody and a whole lot of sympathetic characters get gunned down, but that was
not
a little
funny.
bit, yeah. Well,
it's funny. Yeah, it is funny because it's like. Wait, everyone's who else is going to be here? You know?
Exactly. Yeah, and that had more of the sort of like classic Hollywood, maybe like a Western movie shootout, like, it's so crazy and chaotic and it's brutal, but it's also kind of glamorous is maybe not quite the right word, but
no, let's break out the stormtroopers that can't hit anything for shit.
Well, I mean, gangsters aren't really supposed to have like good aiming skills in real life. I don't know. They're not trained exactly, but
if you are a gangster and would like to comment on that, please reach us at.
Don't shoot me.
That's actually my other thing. Like, I this isn't a very well thorn thought, but like,
awesome.
How much? I always wonder about these. I'm like, how much does Quentin Tarantino in 1993 really know about the world of gangsters? Like, how much is he and like grifters? Like, how much of that is shaped by film and ideas, and how much of it is like real and the fascination with it?
Well, if it's Tarantino, the amount that is from films that he gets his ideas from is 173%.
Like 100%. Yeah, exactly. And so this is like idea of like, and it's just,
and not in a bad way.
I think it really. I think it's really how much it depends. I mean, if you going back to Gandolfini, if you think about how much of The Sopranos was influenced by The Godfather, I mean, there is that, but how much of The Godfather is influenced by? I mean, some people say like, oh, Mario Puzo, he did this and he did this, and some people are like, no, he didn't know jack shit. And then what he wrote,
he wanted to make some money.
Well, that's why he wrote it. Supposed to be the realistic ones.
Based off of true things, yes, but no, what I was getting at is that happened, and then that just kind of got absorbed into
that's
culture.
what I'm saying. It's like this idea of like, oh, this is these are the real side of these gangsters, and it's like, well, I mean, it's just kind of it's
I'm not going to watch The
amusing.
Irishman, okay?
Yeah.
And it is interesting.
I actually got sucked in. I might go home and watch The Irishman. But
it is interesting that we're sitting here commenting that like the violence feels so real because it has consequences, and like the character interactions can be realistic in sort of an artistic sense, that like these people aren't just behaving like figures in a story, they're behaving the way we expect real people to behave. They like break down when they're traumatized.
People who work together. Like, I mean, essentially it's like, it's fun to watch the scene with, Dennis Hopper's character, Clifford, and Christopher Walken is like, because then there's all of these guys right around Christopher Walken, and they're basically it's like kind of it's like, oh, here are guys who work together working together, and their jokes and the way they know each other, and they're like, they know each other's quirks, like the same way that you and they have inside jokes, and they like they have a hierarchy. Like, it's kind of fun to watch that. Like, it's like they have an unusual job, but it's still kind of a workplace comment, like they're at work.
And that's all part of the artistry that goes into just making them feel like real people.
Right.
Like, to say nothing of whether it works like a real drug deal, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But it's like people at work. And but I think one of the things that keeps this movie for me from like where I got into it had so much to do with the fact that feeling when you first fall in love that you're invincible and that you, like the two of you together, suddenly everything literally seems possible. And the fact that they actually, in the beginning of the movie, did not have these high hopes they were just going to like have a life together. They weren't like, we're going to go make millions or we're going to go rob a bank. They were like, okay, well, now we found each other and this is what's going to happen now. And it's just that it happened. The first thing that happened is they suddenly purely accidentally, that was not the intention, got a hold of a shit ton of coke.
Uncut.
And
she just wanted her clothes.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even think she didn't actually want her clothes.
He wanted her
clothes.
He wanted.
He was obviously going to go like mess up the guy, and the clothes were an excuse, but like he had to come back with the clothes. He just happened to come back with cocaine.
So ultimately it's the other girls in that room, it's their fault because he said, give me their clothes, and they just brought a suitcase.
Yeah. I mean, they were obviously in shock, and you don't really think well when you're in shock.
That's not a great employee.
He said get a bag. He didn't specify which bag.
I thought he said get her clothes.
Yeah, he said pack her clothes in this bag, and
I think he picked up the suitcase and threw it.
I don't think he did.
Okay.
Okay.
He definitely handed them a bag. I don't think he brought it with him or anything.
I remember noticing that. Yeah.
No, he did not bring a bag, and they put the cocaine in there. That would have made no sense.
No, but I'm saying like he grabbed the bag that was sitting there and said, go get her clothes, like put her clothes in this bag and come back. Which I'm like, don't wait, just go.
No, he came with a purpose.
Yeah.
He was true to his word to his woman.
That's true. You can't like back out.
You're suggesting he should have fled sooner though, than deprioritized the it was his first murder. So
I would suggest he pick up his driver's license.
Definitely his first murder.
Okay, I also love that you didn't know that until way later.
Yeah.
In the movie. Like that he just left his
Oh no, I think the first time
license.
I watched this, I remember.
Like, because I don't remember seeing him leave the driver's license.
No, the guy had his driver's license, and then it was just there.
But it's off screen. You never find out like whether he dropped it or.
No, Drexel still had it.
Yeah,
in his hand. The point is, in all that chaos, you did not see. He rambled. He did all these things. He left. He did not take the time to get that driver's license back. Yeah. And younger me did think, "Oh, that's not good."
Oh, I didn't even notice it until it was like pointed out. Yeah.
He's fleeing the scene of a murder. I'm thinking about DNA. I'm thinking about everything.
Right.
It is interesting how many like tiny little details there are in the plot where if, like sometimes movies run on like the heroes have this tiny stroke of good luck that lets them save the day at the end. And True Romance has this in reverse where there are these like tiny things that if it had happened that way, that would have been totally fine. Like,
right.
That one scrap of paper attached to the fridge, the driver's license in the hand, the
cocaine in the bag.
Yeah, or Bronson Pinchot's character getting pulled over by that cop. You like delete one of those things from the story, and they're totally
everybody
in the
would
clear.
be fine.
It's so brutal
the neighbor.
that way,
The neighbor happened to be home and see the purple Cadillac.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, also I would say, in the terms of the dumbness, like not only does it have an address, it says address Clarence in California address.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, well, that's just not great.
No.
Well, okay. So now that we've like really looked into the deepness of this movie, let's I already said my when did they fall in love.
I actually did have a follow-up question about that.
You have a follow-up question to my when did they fall in love comment?
Sort of. I was hoping to hear more about whether your feelings about that relationship had changed from when you first saw it to when you saw it this time.
So when I was young, I was idealistic and looking at how quickly people can fall in love. The funny thing is that I think I was more cynical then than I am now. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just be like, oh, that's so dumb. But yeah, they fell in love at first sight because they're dumb. But what's weird is that as I'm older, I don't have the same cynicism. I myself don't think to myself that I would be able to fall in love that quickly, but I am no longer shitting on their abilities to fall in love with each other that quickly. So I keep it.
And did it resonate a bit differently in terms of like winding up with, for good with the first person you were really that close with? Or
I mean, there is something to be said about somebody who you click with and decide to go through a bunch of really difficult circumstances with, be it a cocaine type of situation gone horribly wrong and you just decide to push it out, or college and then working and then marriage and then dogs and then continuations.
I'll choose to be flattered by that.
Aww.
Well, the uncut cocaine, we can't deal with that.
Well, yeah. Once I find it.
Yeah.
Well, first of all,
I mean, you never know. One never really knows
first of all,
until
I don't
happens.
abandon my property. I will go back for it myself.
Mm-hmm.
My cocaine is in the closet somewhere, and once I get around to cleaning it out,
I think I would just leave my shit.
She wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
I don't
his
blame
idea.
her. She's like, start over.
She tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have answered the question.
Mm-hmm.
Your turn.
My turn.
You know what? I made that was the universal you.
Okay.
Other people need to answer this question.
Ryan, how about you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was pondering that, and I was a little bit split, and because like.
Wait, what? They split up? That's the next part.
Yeah, I know. I actually, okay, so I feel like the correct answer has to be either right at the beginning or right at the end. And speaking as a longtime listener of this podcast, I actually think that this movie makes a really convenient, call it like a reference point or a test case for what does it actually mean by they fall in love. Because you can look at like the early infatuation where, presumably this is based on like physical attraction to each other, or this sort of superficial fascination with the other person because like, oh, they like all the same things that I like, and I find it really easy to talk to them. And these two characters hit that so fast and so early, and the movie just kind of like moves through that at this breakneck pace where in the hands of a lesser writer it wouldn't be that believable, but it is done so artfully that like you can really tell that like these characters feel this like really deep infatuation for each other when they're when Alabama's like confessing that she had been hired, but they're also sort of like confessing in a different sense these feelings for each other. And Diana, I was joking as they were like telling each other that they loved each other 5 minutes into the movie. I'm like, they're kind of making your job a little too easy there, aren't they?
Yeah. No, I have the same sort of feeling. I mean, to me, sorry.
Oh, sure. And I was going to say, yeah. And you'd have to be a very cynical person to say like, oh, that's not really being in love, but that's not, I mean, I think at that point they're in love, but they don't have a relationship yet. At least
that's
like
nicely
kind of,
put.
yeah. And kind of, and maybe I'm like still being even a little bit too cynical and bringing a little bit too much of like real world logic into it. It's like, well, a marriage isn't really going to last until they like go through the hardship together, and realistically, people with like that much uncut cocaine would probably be reacting a bit differently. But within this sort of like stylized Tarantino-esque universe that they muddle their way through, we do kind of see an evolution of like, they deal with hardship together. They have not a lot of conflict together, but so as I was watching the movie, pondering this question, like to what extent do I feel that they're in love? And I just see like the way that they like talk to each other playfully, and they have these like cutesy ways of saying goodbye when it's like, oh no, just stay here in this apartment while I go meet with someone about the cocaine or whatever. And they just seem so comfortable together. And yeah, I mean, I think that kind of proves the point that we're trying to answer about like, where are they emotionally? Do they just think they're in love, or are they really in love? And I think the movie goes the distance to show that like, no, it might be new and it might be fast, but the movie goes out of its way to make it real. So yeah. So I'm going to say, yeah, they were in love the first night they met.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go with that mostly because I think, one of my huge flaws in this movie, I think for me is, maybe not flaws, but I don't really know when they would pack it in, but there's a huge backstory to Alabama. You see little bits of it, and also you think, why did she end up here, right? Because so the first night that they're together, she It's winter in Detroit, like winter. Snow's on the ground, and she climbs out of off of the fire escape and onto the ledge of like a highway sign, or billboard. That's the word I'm looking for. And she's sitting there with a blanket, free, like shivering, and she's crying. She's alone. She has not woken him up. And I think it's like, what life have I ended up in?
Oh, wow.
That I can't have feeling, if I'm going to really go through with this, I can't have feelings for anyone, but I have feelings for this person. And I'm a monogamous person. Like, I've only been doing this for a few days. Can I get out of it? And, clearly, like, it's not like she's turned a few tricks in a car. Like, she's like got a pretty intense pimp. So maybe she's been like groomed for a while. Like, there's definitely like something there. And he is also such a lonely person, but he's not bitter about his loneliness. So it's almost like both of them have sort of accepted a certain, I'm never going to connect with someone. And when they meet, that all changes because it's so easy. Like, he's estranged from his father. He hadn't talked to him in 3 years. Though they clearly have a good relationship. Like, they're not bitter. There's, it's not like when they meet up, there's clearly, like, there's a bunch of history. Like, the father was obviously, like, an alcoholic and was, later on, he's like, this is the only thing I've ever asked you to do. I've never given you any grief for the times that you've left me. You've, like, he does this litany of basically all of the things. And he just wants to be, he just wants to live. Like, he doesn't want to be famous. He's even with the cocaine. He's not like, I'm going to give you diamonds and necklace, pearl. We're going to like start a recording company, like whatever. They're just like, we want to just sell it. And we want to go to Mexico and just live. Like, just live a nice life. Just have a nice life, a pleasant life. And I think like in that way, I think that's, kind of makes it feel very real because you see that they're like, we just assumed this would never be. And yet here it is. Here it is. Here's someone I like, I connect with, obviously physically, obviously the chemistry is really there. And also it's so easy to talk to them and they have the same outlook on the world. Like, I don't have to struggle to explain myself. They're interested, they're like, there's no pretense. There's just a sweetness. It's like suddenly all the color's been turned on,
What I think is kind of helpful is that I don't think it's just, I don't have to explain myself. I think it's, I only have to explain myself once and then it's just fine. Because clearly she had to explain what she was doing there. And he, listened to that and he's just like, yeah, okay. And then, he's just like, I'm going to go get your stuff. And then, she says, no, don't do that. And he comes back, this is what I did. And she goes, okay. So. But
also the fact, and probably the fact that he does something for her, that doesn't, and he doesn't, I don't know. I had the moment where I was like, that would raise me some red flags.
Yeah. That is an interesting perspective that, like, not only do they have that level of understanding with each other, but it's sort of like a larger than life version of it. That real world couples get each other's like personal quirks around the house. Tarantino world couples, understand why you went off and murdered a pimp for your partner.
Right. And that wasn't going to be a regular thing,
One would hope not.
Yeah.
I am glad that you brought up Alabama's perspective on, having just started working as a prostitute and fell in love with her third client, because that is kind of a fascinating perspective, just thinking of it as like that kind of makes her an incompetent prostitute. Like, I'm not sure. That's like
Yeah, exactly.
Reach a professional. It's like being a psychiatrist. You're not supposed to fall in love with your clients. She's just
right.
There's a professional code that.
But you want to know why this version is realistic?
Yeah.
Because if it was Pretty Woman, it would have been her first one,
right?
Not her third.
Not
one.
her third one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this idea. I mean, it's like clearly chosen for a reason, right? It's not. She hasn't been a prostitute for a month. She hasn't been a prostitute. It's not her first, but it's, and she's still like, it's not like she's like traumatized, you know? When she comes on, she's very confident. Mm-hmm. She's very, like. Yeah,
they don't sell it as like, this is a lifestyle that she needs to be rescued from, but that's right. But leaving it is nonetheless something that she would
especially when you see like when you see the sort of pimp world, you're like, yeah, okay. No, his instinct was right. And his dad was a cop, so he probably, knows something about,
maybe
the
not.
Dark world.
I don't know.
Not.
I think we're getting deeper into the sides that we don't usually analyze. I guess this is my own fault.
No, it's just an interesting movie for that reason.
Don't pick such a good movie next time, Diana.
Okay, fine. Coming up next.
So what do you think happened?
Oh, Lordy. I think. And so, okay, it is very easy, shout out to the podcast, How Did This Get Made? It's very easy to assume that with everything that went right, how much of this is potentially a Jacob's Ladder scenario where their piece at the end where she's on the beach and he's survived getting shot in the head and they're playing with their son and they're in Mexico. I assume it's meant to be Mexico on what appears to be like a private beach, but it's not a private beach. It's just like
an empty beach.
An empty beach, because how many beaches are empty? None.
Well, Mexico.
None.
You can't tell, but it's actually freezing out that day.
None.
I mean, I've been to like empty beaches in Hawaii.
None. Maybe in 93, but not in 2000, whatever this year is.
Only a few years ago have I been on an empty beach in Hawaii.
None. The point I'm being...
My experience of this is different than Diana's.
The point I'm trying to get at, it's very easy to assume with everything that went right, that they got away with all this money, that they managed to survive all this horrificness. Did anyone have an inkling that
Actually, did they ever get any money?
I mean, she grabbed the suitcase of cash.
Yeah, they left the cocaine, but stole the money
yeah. Okay,
she stole the cash. Right. It's. Am I alone in thinking that it's very possible to assume that beautiful ending was not real?
Are we going to talk about the changes to the script that happened in production?
Well, now we are.
Yay. Okay.
Yeah.
Polina, are you aware of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that as originally written, Clarence was supposed to die at the end, and that was sort of a change made. I don't know exactly what point in production, but
please tell me it was the test audiences. Please tell me it was the test audiences.
I don't think it was a test audience.
That always makes me sad when it's a test audience.
I read the movie changed in tone so much with the way that Tony Scott was directing it that it was sort of universally agreed that like a bummer ending wouldn't fit.
I think also like Tarantino actually agreed it was a better ending.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, I read that.
That
he said that had he directed himself, he would have stuck with it. But the way that Tony Scott directed it, Tarantino agreed with the decision to have Clarence survive.
Because what he did, he took the script, but then before it was very non-linear, and he made it linear.
Oh, that's
what I read. Yeah,
that
so basically Scott, Scott was like, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
However, like it's really confusing. We'll just do it linearly. Rather than like in a series of flashbacks. So curious now.
But yeah, I mean, of course, that's like...
Don't just watch Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, because that's like Tarantino's thing, and in anyone else's hands, you can see that not working out. Yeah. And then I'll just inject the other bit of trivia that I like, the fact that Reservoir Dogs seems to take place in a continuity with the version of True Romance that Tarantino wrote, and that Alabama is mentioned briefly in dialogue by Mr. White, but it's implied that... things that happened after she had been widowed. Because
now I want to I mean, I haven't seen Reservoir Dogs in probably 25.
Right. You don't need to. It's just a throwaway line.
Yeah, no, it's very brief. Yeah, but Mr. White is talking about how he and Alabama had worked together as thieves. Mm-hmm. So
it also is connected to the Inglourious Bastards universe as well. It's in trivia. Who was a distant relative of?
Oh, there's actually a whole lot of connections that are mostly just implied. I think the one you're talking about was Donowitz. there was a character whose last name was Donowitz in
Inglourious Basterds.
He was one of the bastards, and that's the name
Oh,
of the movie producer.
Saul's,
So.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Because that's how Tarantino rolls.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I didn't know.
It's all connected.
It makes sense.
No, it doesn't. But Tarantino
it
gets to
doesn't,
do
but yeah.
it's it doesn't have to make sense, but Tarantino deems it, therefore, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
All right. Wait. So where was I? Oh, right.
So what happens? Yeah. So you think you were saying like you thought it was a dream sequence?
No. I'm saying that it's very easy for one to think that because everything went right and because it was a beautiful beach and everything got away and everything happened, less one eye. It's very easy to think, oh, but he got shot in the face, but it's okay and we all made it together. Am I the only one who thinks that it's possible that this could just be a dream scenario?
Oh, like in his. As he's dying.
No, in her. I guess if it is,
either.
It could be either. Like this is her wondering what could have been had she
maybe
gets away.
Their dream together, like they're both kind of have the same dream.
Or no, like the end of Titanic where they're all clapping on the beach and there's their child there because they lived in. No, okay. What I was trying to get at is, with everything that's happening, and if the way the movie is set up, it's so easy to think that this isn't real. But if we're going to kind of keep it as everything happens to be right for them, I think that they got their big payday. And I think that their string of coincidences of luck and bad luck colliding together has now just kind of evened out. So they're in Mexico. They'll be in Mexico. I'm willing to wager that he's going to find himself a comic book store in Mexico. And they're going to learn the language, and they have their kid. I'm going to say that's real.
I mean, it's 1993, so the internet's coming in a few years.
I mean,
doesn't even have to find a physical store.
I mean, the internet's not going to. I don't think the internet's going to explode until like the mid-aughts. So
97, 98. You got 98, 99. That's 6 years later. You got like
So
they're going to start running out of money. They only got $20,000.
No, they got 200,000.
Oh, they got 200,000.
I think got 20,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, 200,000. And I mean, how long is that going to last you in Mexico?
Well, in Mexico, it will go farther.
Right.
Oh wait, so that was okay. All right, so yes,
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying he's going to go down there and he's going to buy a store and do the thing and do that. No, he's going to find something that's already established, and they're going to go back to the life that they had before, where she's going to raise their kid. He's going to work, and they're going to live like a very basic lifestyle and live off of that money. That 200,000 will last them a while, and I don't see them going extravagant because they weren't before.
No.
I don't know.
No, even when she buys clothes, they're so like...
She likes them.
Yeah.
She just gets what she likes, not because it's shiny or fancy or anything.
I mean, it is shiny and fancy. It's very bright.
Well, it's no Versace, so
she doesn't go to like Versace and like goes nuts and does stuff like that.
I'm sorry, Versace? What?
She goes thrift store nuts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like Ross nuts or Target nuts.
That was definitely not thrift store. That was just like...
Yeah, that was like, that was
like gift shop nuts.
I don't know how fashion works. I was prepared to make this whole connection between like the way she shops for clothes and the way that Clarence collects comics, but maybe that doesn't hold up.
I don't think he collects them. I just think he reads them.
Or curates a collection that is owned by the store, let's say.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say he absorbs it, but he doesn't purchase it.
Yeah.
He's about, experience.
Yeah,
he's experiencing, but he's not about possessing.
Yeah, he's not. He doesn't strike me as like a collector, like because he doesn't. When they go, they just aficionado. Yeah, they just
not a hoarder. Yeah.
Kind of like Tarantino himself, I would imagine he absorbed all the knowledge of these movies, but I doubt he has a gigantic shelf full of all the DVDs and things like that.
I don't know.
Well, up to a point, home video wouldn't have really been a thing for a lot of those anyway. So.
That was kind of the only way to see them, though.
Exactly.
To try to find bootlegs of them and try to.
Well, he worked at a video store, so
so
he had his access.
I don't know. He's tried. I would assume he is a collector, but I don't really. That's not based on anything.
I see more as a creator than a collector.
Just like watching things over and having them so you can watch them over and over.
Maybe.
I don't know. I have no idea.
I apologize for creating this tangent.
You totally did. Yeah. But my point being is that they're there. They're living the lifestyle that they have. I think that they're going to have another kid. Yep. Because, they have to have two. Yeah. In my head, they have to have two.
So if the first one is named Elvis, what would the second one be named?
Priscilla.
Sure.
That was easy. What?
I would think it would be named after her favorite musician, though you never find out who that would be.
No, if they're going to do that, then it would be Georgia. If she's Alabama.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They could always name it after one of the copious supply of dead characters.
Yeah.
Drexel?
Yeah. Drexel.
Well, probably like his dad.
Well, yeah.
Clifford.
I like that answer better.
Oh, jeez.
They should start with the people that they personally killed, and then Drexel and Virgil.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Oh, and what was Michael Rapaport's character's name?
Floyd.
Floyd.
Dick.
Right.
Dick Ritchie.
Yeah, he'll be the godfather.
Yeah,
to both those children,
of course.
Yes.
Didn't he die?
No, he ran away.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to say he did not.
I thought he was part of the shootout.
He was definitely there, but I don't think he died.
Oh God, I know. I think
he ran
remember
down
being
the hall.
upset. I was like, "Oh, don't let Dick die."
I don't think
But
he
now
did.
I don't remember. Okay, I'm just gonna pretend he did. He didn't. I'm just gonna accept that.
So they were happily ever after in Mexico, and they get a little daughter.
So they have another.
Her name is Priscilla. Her name is Priscilla.
Okay.
They live in very, straightforwardness in Mexico. The end.
How about you?
Well, I walked into this prepared to be a little bit cynical about it because, just in general, like sort of the faster and more sort of like whirlwind romances, the more when I like try to apply my realistic brain to it, it's like, oh, it's never going to last. They haven't really been through anything together.
He's going to get shot again.
He's going to get shot again, lose the other eye. But having talked about it with the two of you, I am kind of reflecting on like what I was saying earlier, how the movie really puts the mileage in showing like not just the fact that these people are like very much in love with each other, but that they sort of work together. They get each other. So I do think that, they have what it takes to, to make the marriage work long term, especially considering that they're going to be in circumstances where, they're in Mexico. They might be a bit culturally isolated. They're separated from all of their roots. They don't have any other surviving family. All they really have is each other. And that not to continue to be cynical about it, like they need to stay together, but why wouldn't they want to stay together? And I think that the fact that the $200,000 is a finite amount of money, 70% of all couples, of all divorced couples, do fight about drug money. I've heard.
Yeah.
But
they didn't fight over drug money.
That was the what?
No, they didn't fight over it. I mean, normal couples do, but they didn't fight. They came together, honey.
That's true.
Watch the movie again.
They're the 30%.
Now the mafia and they definitely fought over the drug money with guns, but yeah.
And they divorced.
Right. Yes, but Clarence and Alabama were united in their opinion that they should have the money. Sorry, that was silly. Okay. But where I will allow myself to be cynical is that, the relationship is not going to stay the way that it is. Even for these two, the honeymoon has to end eventually. And I could see them settling more into, as their parents, things become less about the romance per se and more about just having a partner, which is, that's kind of like the typical, template for just like a healthy, happy marriage. And I feel like enough of the groundwork is there, at least in movie language, for these two people kind of like being on the same wavelength to get there. And I do find it kind of interesting to envision them as, clearly not having all this adventure in their lives in terms of like, fleeing from criminals and everything, and also everything not being so new anymore. And where I land on that is I kind of see Clarence becoming a little bit more like his father, which I guess bodes ill because now, help me out. Did they talked briefly about Clarence's mother? Were they divorced or did she die?
Divorced.
Yeah, I thought so. So I won't jump to the place that like, well, he's a child of the divorce and he's never going to divorce Alabama. But if you look at that character of Clifford, it's interesting that like he's living alone. He is a retired police officer who is working as a security guard. And, based on the circumstances of his life, you can tell that, well, maybe you can't tell, but I'm going to make an inference that, maybe like in the midst of that divorce, maybe his retirement wasn't a completely happy one. Maybe, just being like a mall cop or whatever was kind of like, the glory days of being a real police officer a little bit behind him. And I wonder if a little bit in Clarence, we would see kind of a reflection of Clifford having a bit of that faded glory that, looking back on like, wow, wasn't that, an exciting way to live my life, acquiring all this money and, now it's just this. But yeah, I mean, maybe the essential difference there is the presence of Alabama. The fact that, living out your retirement alone is quite different from, living it out with the love of your life, which is what he's going to be doing. So, yeah. So I would say like just sort of, if you're looking at Clarence's future, just sort of imagine Dennis Hopper, who is still a loving person. He's he doesn't question his son too much. He makes the sacrifice for his son. I think that Clifford and Clarence are both very much capable of deep love for family, and we're going to see that reflected with Clarence and his own son. So,
yeah, that's very sweet, actually. Yeah, I also think they end up together. I mean, I think, I see them strolling off into the sunshine as well. I think the one thing, we kind of, I feel like some of the things that keeps people together, I think, are kind of shared values and a shared vision of what life is supposed to look like. I mean, just enough of a difference to kind of keep each other, kind of try to help each other grow so you grow together, but not so much that they want such different things from life. And I think that these two want the same thing from life. They just want to be happy. They're not, they want to enjoy things. It's a very like, they're not like these super hyper ambitious, people, even to the point of like wanting fame or, it's kind of the different, the Bonnie and Clyde, when we watched last time that's what kind of kept those two together is sort of this desire for, some idea of a life that is more interesting. Whereas I think that they genuinely just want a quiet life together. And I mean, it's hard because you actually don't know that much about Alabama, but just the sheer joy that she finds in everything and meeting everyone. She's like a ray of, she is literally just a ray of sunshine. She's just this delightful, very genuine, warm person. And I think that basically, yeah, they're going to find a place in Mexico. I think they're going to find a community that they're going to care about. And I think that, I think they're going to give everything to their children. And I think all the adventures that they're going to have are really with their kids, and I think the adventures are going to be like making things for them and taking them on trips and discovering things together. And I think it's going to last a while. I think at some point, when the kids get older and they're less, the family is kind of less primacy. I think that's where, like I envision her sort of teaching, maybe she teaches like English or she teaches school. Like she just, I just see her as kind of wanting to like, really engage with people because she is so engaging. And I see him sort of going through a period of like, not, just sort of a kind of a malaise, like, what's the, like kind of what you were talking about. Like, I've had this fun, everything's fine, but kind of a midlife crisis. And I think like, that's when maybe, he'll find a way to, the comic book store stuff. I actually do, I almost don't see him having a physical store, but maybe he kind of does stuff on eBay, or he tries to bring that love, I don't think he wants to live in a city. I think they're done with that. I think they're done with people. I think they just want to I think they want to just, he's going to find a sort of a community, maybe, even online, and try to make money that way. Because his overhead is so low. And just but sort of this, they're basically going to learn to be self-sufficient and try to do as much as they can for themselves. But I think I see them more as initially not doing this, but just really becoming a part of a community and having kind of the community and warmth and that they kind of have wanted and never really got with their original families. And I think they will, I think they'll, I think they're going to be the kind of couple that die within 2 weeks of each other kind of thing.
3 weeks later?
Is there another shootout?
Yeah. Hopefully just kind of a broken heart type thing.
That resonates. You make a good point, right? Because it's interesting that even though the characters are introduced as being loners, they're also both intensely personable people. We see them being really charismatic with the people around them. I think you're right that they were just sort of waiting to find the group that they need to fit into, because they never had problems being with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For some reason were lonely.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe lonely. Yeah, I was thinking they're lonely, maybe not loners. Because and also just his boss likes him so much that he gives him, the key to the store. Mm-hmm. But then also...
Well, that's an employee.
Yeah. But just, doesn't have an issue with him coming in after hours. But also just, knows where he is on his birthday and wants to buy him a relatively expensive birthday present.
I mean, depending on our rates, yeah.
Right, but still, it's not a $10 Starbucks gift card like I give my employees.
Well, in 93, it was... How much with inflation?
There's so little I know about prostitution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Let's keep it that way. Yeah.
In Detroit, the rates for...
Oh, that's right. California versus... Okay. Michigan.
I mean, and it was multiple. It was overnight. So what do we learn from Pretty Woman?
Is that cut or uncut? Oh, yeah. Wait, no, that was the cocaine.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you a male prostitute?
What?
Said cut or uncut.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Ended on a weird note, but we were. It was sweet until we got there. It was sweet, but we know nothing about prostitution and prostitution rights. I think that's what we can end on.
That sounds like this movie in a nutshell. Weird, on a weird note, but sweet.
Yeah. Yes.
What I think is fascinating is that not one of us thinks that Christopher Walken is coming after them.
I actually was thinking about that, but I decided to cut it out. I actually did have an alternate thing, but I kind of decided to go sweet. Well, no, I had an alternate thing that basically, they basically make a pact that they will never ever, they're not they don't have a life of crime and that they will never kill anyone, but Clarence basically does catch whiff of he sees a henchman of Christopher Walken's and just kills him right away and never ever tells Alabama until his death, and he tells her on the deathbed because he dies first because yeah. So that was my alternate ending, but I decided to go sweet after hearing both of you.
The Charlie Bronson ending.
Yeah.
Although they should be safe because the cocaine was accounted for. It was only Saul's money that they took. So
right.
Or Saul, wait, what was the Saul Rubinek? Lee's money.
But they still crossed them. So
yeah.
Yeah. You can't let people get away with that.
I mean, sometimes you have to because you have nothing to work with.
Right.
But
No, I've just decided that's gonna be nice. But yeah, that was my alternate ending. That was my original.
well, it isn't
But I pivoted.
that alternate. I mean, it still could have happened in your world, but
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying that was my other ending that I was toying with. Alternate to me.
I'd watch it.
all right. Well, that was True Romance.
That was.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Yeah, what a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm pleased to chime in on Diana's movie viewing history.
You do have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah.
So thank you. So if you have thoughts on True Romance or any type of the bits of the conversation that we had here, you can reach us. We're on Twitter at HEAMCast.
HEAMCAST.
And then you can also reach us on Facebook at Happily Ever Aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
We have an email. It's contact@heamcast.com. If you write a review and leave it on Apple Podcasts or any of the podcatchers, that helps other podcast listeners find us. We really appreciate that.
It's so great when you do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and you can go on social media. If you search the hashtag Lady Pod Squad, you can find other lady-run podcasts
About almost everything under the sun. Really, really interesting. Some great stuff. And we've been lucky enough to have some of them as guests.
and we're lucky enough to just be able to meet them, get to know them, and be a part of their community.
I know. It's such a great world.
And considering how deep and fraught this movie was, I think I need to relax a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. It's kind of, you need to
Yeah, so
shake it off.
I am going to do what I also recommend all of you to do is check out our wonderful sponsor, Frankie and Myrrh.
They're awesome.
They have a nice range of different type of aromatherapy, and I use anything that's got lavender in it. It's just going to kind of put me in a nice serene mood.
Right.
So I recommend anything with lavender in the list of ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
What's really great though is that because they're supporting us, they gave us an opportunity for our listeners to save some money. If you go to frankieandmyrrh.com, so that's FRANKIE and MYRRH, and you use the code HAPPILY1 at checkout.
Mm-hmm. HAPPILY and the number 1.
Mm-hmm. Then you'll save 20% and you'll be supporting our show. And what's even cooler is that you can, any order over $35 gets free domestic shipping, and that's any order period.
Yeah, and it's delightful stuff. And they have sprays and roll-ons and car air fresheners that don't smell like weird pine lemon stuff. It smells make your car smell really good, not chemically.
They've got really cool diffusers and things like that. So check it out. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, they're a wonderful company.
Yeah.
Bay Area company too.
Mm-hmm. That matters to us because we like to do locally things. But
yes,
but
because we live here. But it doesn't matter. If you live somewhere else, you should reap the benefits.
It's at your access. Thank you, Internet.
Yes.
All right. So next time.
Yeah, what are we going to do? What's going to happen?
Well,
what are we doing?
Fortunately, we are going to have... Sorry, Ryan, you're out.
Oh.
Okay. In a good way.
I'll still be listening.
We're not taking you out in a in a gunfight where
Polina does not speak for me.
I'm not taking you out in a gunfight because, as we discussed earlier, I don't know how to fire a gun.
I think I will have that cigarette, though.
Yeah, I do not blame you.
You're not smoking.
No. Let me
Not even.
All right. We are fortunate enough to have Steve and Izzy from Everything I Learned from Movies back.
Yay! And they've done a couple things with us.
Yes.
They did the
Revenge of the
Thin Man
Nerds.
movies, Revenge of the Nerds.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they did that with us. And they're coming back, and we're going to be talking about Romancing the Stone.
Wow, I haven't seen that since I was 10.
It's 1984, and I've never seen it before.
It's pretty cool, as I recall, but I was 10. I don't know.
Okay. Well, then...
10-year-old me liked a lot of questionable things, like Garfield.
What?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's an argument off the air, but what?
Yeah.
All right.
I know.
Not questionable.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get mad later. Next time, Romancing the Stone, Steve and Izzy,
I'm very much looking forward to it.
we'll see you then.
Bye.